All right. We are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just kind of reflect on what we talked about. We talked about WWE SmackDown in Albany, New York. Albany, New York is a huge, venue in terms of professional wrestling. You recently had TNA All In, I think it was. No, it wasn't TNA All In. What was it? No, Against All Odds is the next one. But recently saw TNA. Had a pay-per-view there. You see Ring of Honor going there, and it's very iconic. Reminded me of WWF No Mercy 2000, featuring Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, and The Rock. Which definitely influenced the game that I grew up playing with. So I was like, you know what, I want to test these guys. I want to see if these guys, test their video game knowledge. So let's go ahead and move on into our next segment. We're going to talk about Becky Lynch's she's going to have a contract coming up. She has not yet signed back with the WWE. She said she's going to whenever she is ready. So let's go ahead and dive on into that. This kind of reminds me, Becky Lynch, she's held 7 different titles in terms of the of WWE. Raw Women's Champion, SmackDown Women's Champion. She's been part of a World Tag Team Champion. She's been a Royal Rumble winner for the women. She's also won Money in the Bank. She's done it all essentially. So, for kind of like an athlete, to make sure you kind of get your worth, because the best thing about an athlete is ultimately your athletic abilities. Injuries can come in a snap of a finger. So essentially, you got to kind of compensate and be like, well, you kind of obviously you care about the company, the team, the organization, or whatever. But it gets to a point where you kind of have to go out there and kind of get yours. Becky Lynch, I believe, is kind of going to be one of the highest paid women in wrestling. You saw Mercedes Moné make a deal with AEW. She's getting paid millions of dollars. She's the top paid woman in professional wrestling. I think Becky's kind of gonna head to that level. But what I want to talk to Chris about, Chris, go ahead and give me an example of when you kind of saw this in the past, when you kind of saw an athlete. I don't care if it's the NFL, the NHL, Major League Baseball, yada yada yada. How important is it for an athlete to kind of hold out? Obviously, you kind of have that negative portrayal that people are like, oh, you're doing what's wrong. You're doing only you. Why do you only care about the money? There's those negative connotations, but just give me an example of, something historical in terms of sports entertainment where you see an athlete kind of do that.
So this is kind of recency bias. I am from the tri-state area, like my man Nelson. So one example I can immediately think of in terms of recent history is Saquon Barkley holding out for that contract for the Giants. He obviously didn't get it, and now he's an Eagle. I see Nelson immediately putting his head down. So he probably doesn't want to hear about that, but that's the guy I think of. And I ultimately did some research on Becky Lynch. She seems like one of the most deserving female wrestlers to kind of get her money, get her due respect in this industry. And so I really think that ultimately holding out for that contract is very important. But in my mind, I see Nelson shaking his head. I think that ultimately, Becky Lynch, she deserves it. And wherever her career takes her, I'm looking forward to seeing how she responds.
All right, my man Nelson chomping at the
That's
bits.
not
Let us hear
fair.
it.
Like he just attacked like my weak side. Like that is
Oh,
not fair. I'm a Giants fan. Like that
I
is
had to come out
not fair.
swinging.
hell
That
yeah,
is
he
not
did.
fair. Like because I was going to say like the exact same thing because that is like the most recent thing that has happened in like most sports. I can't really think of it happening most of the time in basketball because like a lot of the times like the teams are willing to like just pay up immediately. Like
Definitely,
how
absolutely.
they were you see how they were so quick to paying up Jalen Brown and now he's like the most paid athlete in the entire NBA
Right.
even though because like they were scared of losing him. So it's like you see that it's a lot quicker there, but yeah, that's the most recent example. That's not fair.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in headlines. There was a lot of scrutiny surrounding that. A lot of people were like, "Why are you paying Jalen Brown as a one when you have Jason Tatum?" But obviously, you see what he's doing in the Boston Celtics series right now. He's obviously going to shine and shimmer and glimmer in the NBA championship against the Dallas Mavericks. Obviously, I have a Boston Celtics fan here, my man Christopher. Give me a taste. How do you think Jalen Brown's going to do against that excellent Mavs defense?
Oh, he's been incredible in this postseason. I think this is going to be, I talked about this a little bit on the podcast. I think this is going to be a much more exciting series than people think. I think this can go the distance. I think this looks like a 6-game, 7-game series. I
Yeah.
think the ultimate, thing for me is how Kristaps Porzingis looks coming back into the lineup, playing in real game time for the first time in over almost a month. You're gonna have to see how he does against these energetic young bigs in Lively and Gafford over there at Dallas. It should be an exciting series, but obviously my man Jaylen Brown, while I don't think he's necessarily one of the most deserving players of a huge contract, he definitely is one of the more high-profile players in the league. I think that he's proving it this postseason, obviously getting finally that Larry Bird Trophy, the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, well-deserved for him. So I'm looking forward to this Celtics-Mavs series. Should be a thriller of a series.
Absolutely, 110%. Becky Lynch
Should be
has
the
been the
LeBron
backbone of the
Trophy.
women's division. Incredibly, she's she went down to NXT to kind of help revive that product. She's held the team on her back, kind of like what you're talking about. How Saquon Barkley kind of held out for his deal because he's the best player on the Giants. We've seen Daniel Jones play without Saquon Barkley, and it's kind of ugly. I don't really have high hopes for the Giants, although I am a Giants fan. But Saquon Barkley is absolutely he should have got a huge deal last season. That's just my opinion. A lot of people undervalue the running back position. But yeah, we'll let Nelson get the final word in this. Obviously, I remember talking to you yesterday, or no, I think it was yesterday. I think it was yesterday. We were talking about how LeBron James, held out for his contract, and but since we have Becky Lynch is like the LeBron James of women's wrestling. So, like, how
That
do
is
you?
insane.
Yeah, how could you compare apples to oranges in this, kind of circumstance? Do it the best you can. Let me know how Becky Lynch should approach her contract negotiations with the WWE.
Well, I mean, I'm not entirely sure like how she should approach it, but I feel like she's basically just taking a break because her husband Seth Rollins is injured. So I think she's just like using this as like a way to just take a break from the
Yeah.
game. And I don't really think there hasn't really been a situation like that in basketball before, but I don't think none that comes to mind right now. So
Okay. Well, hey guys,
I
honestly,
can't really give you one comparison. It's like really difficult because it's like again taking a break, like a little break like that. And I mean, it's crazy to compare it to Michael Jordan, and I'm not going to do that because it's like
oh
that's
come on,
kind of
let's.
crazy.
I'm just
No,
kidding. He's like, no, no, gonna shut
no,
that
that
down
is
right now.
no, no. Well, because like we know Michael Jordan, he took like an early break, like when he was retiring in like '93, like well, retiring in massive air quotes for that.
Yeah.
And it's like she's basically taking a break. It's the same thing. It's like more or less the same thing. But I'm not going to compare those two.
All right, guys, we
That is
are
a
all
little
out of time.
crazy.
Yeah, we are all out of time for this segment, and with my boys Christopher. And make sure you check out his fantasy podcast, and make sure you check out Nelson's basketball podcast. They're really amazing. Both these guys are just great. Great gentlemen and scholars. The man, the myth, the legends. Honestly, it was an absolute pleasure having you guys on 1,010%. Hope that we're gonna be on Chris's show next week. Can't wait for that. So yeah, just gonna say our goodbyes. We'll go with Nelson first.
See you guys.
Nice, I love it, man. A few words. Just kidding. All right, Christopher.
Yeah, man, this was an awesome time spending with you guys talking about a sport that I'm not familiar with, like I said, but it was a pleasure. Be sure to tune into my fantasy sports podcast.
Oh yeah, I love that. You guys have
Time
a
for him to
beautiful night.
learn.
You, you guys have a great weekend, and you guys take care. Okay. All right, much love. All right. So obviously, I know that I was totally frozen in that box to the left. Thank you, Crucial PG, for letting me know. I kind of had to double check that because I was like, okay, like I was trying to fix it behind the scenes, but I get at least the two guys were working. You see this ugly mug all the time. Kind of opening up my fat mouth. So sometimes it's kind of good. So yeah. So do not go anywhere. Let's see if these segments work because the segments weren't working. Oh, now it works. Okay, awesome. We're going to do our Thursday night wrestling review where we dive into Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, a little of the National Wrestling Alliance. So, hey, do not go anywhere.